Good morning. Almost noon. Starting a little later than I might have. I was doing Kickstarter stuff. But here I am off on another walk on a beautiful spring day here in Regina, Saskatchewan. Kind of going to repeat a walk I did a little while ago and kind of walk down to the McKinsey Art Gallery. But then I'll come back a different way and might vary the path along the way as well. It's about 11 Celsius as I set off, so just wearing a sweater today. Even in the shade, the snow is mostly gone now. Still a little bit clinging to our backyard, which gets almost no sun. But I'm not seeing a lot in the shade around here anywhere. So I mentioned the Kickstarter. It's doing very well. It's at, as I leave, it just jumped up to $13,442 of the $15,000 I'm trying to raise. I just put on an add-on so that anybody who's at a level where they are getting the paperback of the new anthology that I'm kickstarting. I should maybe explain, if you're new, that I'm kickstarting an anthology featuring short fiction by authors who were guests during the second year of my Aurora award-winning podcast, The World Shapers, where I interview science fiction and fantasy authors about their creative process. Looking for $15,000. It'll have 24 stories in it, 18 new ones, 6 reprints from some of the biggest names in the field, a few from kind of left field, but all science fiction and fantasy authors I've interviewed. And yeah, so it's at 13, what did I just say? 13,442, that's it. And I added an add-on today so that anybody who's getting the paperback of the new anthology shipped to them can add on a copy of the first anthology. It won't be shipped at the same time as the second anthology because I have those in stock, so I'll be shipping those separately. So anybody that adds that on gets a copy of the first book in time well ahead of the second one, months probably. It'll probably go out in May, and I'm sure the new one won't be out until September at the earliest. Hopefully I'll make it by September. That's what I did last year. So, something to read while you wait, if you choose that option, if you choose to back the Kickstarter, which you can find at tinyurl.com/Shapers of Worlds 2, Arabic numeral 2, or just go to Kickstarter and do a search for Shapers of Worlds Volume 2. That add-on will be available for people who have already backed. So when I send out my update tonight and mention that, it might potentially pick up a few. I added an add-on earlier for a second or additional copies of the new anthology at the suggestion of a backer up in the Arctic who wants to donate copies to her local high schools, and she took several additional copies once I made that available, so that was nice. I'm going to look through the underpass. I suspect it's still full of water, but I'll take a look before I decide how I'm crossing Albert here. I'll do another walk around the lake sometime soon, see how it's changed. Only in that it's thawing. I suspect it's still ice covered, but I don't know for sure. There's a little snow still clinging in the shadows. There's a small heaping of it. Probably shoveled off at the sidewalk to make that pile, so it's clinging on to life, if you want to call it life. If you happen to be watching this live on Facebook or YouTube, you can leave a comment and I'll see it. And can say hi. Or answer a question if you have one. If I can read it. I always put that caveat in there. Oh no, the underpass is still clearly flooded because it's closed. You can see the barriers there. It's the easiest way to get across here, but for some reason this year it's been quite full of water. Well, not as full as it was the last time I looked, so maybe it'll open again before too long. Doesn't matter, I have to walk along the bridge anyway, so I'll just walk along the Albert Street Bridge in this direction. Adjusting that. Kind of noisy along here. This is the Albert Street Bridge. It's a very long bridge over a very short creek, a very small creek. And the Legislative Building you can see over there on the other side, of course. The Marble Palace. And it looks like there's perhaps more open water on the lake over there. Can't see it very well, but still a lot of ice. We're getting there. It was just last week I was walking on Saturday morning in the snow. By Saturday afternoon that snow was gone. Then Monday night there was a snowstorm that I walked in. You can see that on my YouTube channel with 100-kilometer-hour gusts. It was a short walk. I just wanted to go out and show what it was like. Oh, well, the creek, especially down here, is starting to open up quite well. Stop and take a look. The ice is getting very thin further down the creek. And here where the water flows through the dam, which forms the lake over there, it's, of course, quite open. They refurbished this bridge not that long ago, so these terracotta balusters, I guess you call those. And there's the provincial coat of arms. We're all touched up, cleaned up, but of course with the traffic and the dirt and everything, they look pretty dirty again now. There's also these buffalo head medallions on the bridge, marking the fact that Regina was originally known as Pile of Bones, because this is where buffalo bones were piled up after hunts. And of course, people came out here and shot bison and buffalo by the thousands. And before that, the First Nations people had hunted them. There's up at Wascana, which is an interpretive center museum up by Saskatchewan, in the Saskatchewan River Valley, there's a buffalo jump, which of course is where the First Nations people would love that bridge, says Gary. It's very decorative and a great place to fly flags. What do we got right now? Just Canadian flags. We had a bunch of Union Jacks for, I think, for Commonwealth Day. And then for a while it was alternating Canadian and Greek flags, and I don't really know what that was in aid of, or celebration of. Oh, if I'm lucky, I can cross Albert here now. If I catch the light. Nope, I missed it. So we will go straight across when it turns green. And go the other way. And watch the traffic go by. It's quite busy today, beautiful day. Could walk on down this side, but I do want to get over to the other side, so well, maybe I'll walk down here and cross at the next one just to keep moving. Here's some of the houses along here. Still a sign up, Save Regina's Cookhouse. The cookhouse is not a place where things were cooked, but it's one of the big houses along here that was in danger of being turned into multi-dwelling unit. And I think it's been designated heritage property, so they can't do that. But then it doesn't necessarily mean something bad still will happen to it. Trouble is, of course, an old house takes money to save and renovate. So there have been a few of these fights over the years, and some you win and some you lose when it comes to saving heritage property. Of course, in Regina, what we think of as ancient historic buildings, I think the oldest building in town only goes to the late 19th century, obviously. St. Paul's Cathedral, I think, is the oldest building in town. And I think it was built about 1890, give or take. We'll cross up here and go over to the legislative side and then walk down the roads. Get away from Albert. Well, there's no thing on this side. I guess, oh, there it is. It's already pressed. From the other side. You can see why I don't like to walk down Albert very much. Still a little too much traffic noise. That was a bus. It can take a while, these intersections. Change here in a minute. There we go. So I said hi to Gary on Facebook. Anybody watching live, please leave a comment at some point and I'll know you're there. Or if you're watching this recorded, that's fine too. There's the Saskatchewan Legislative Building. Looking impressive as always. As I mentioned before, they recently redid the dome, which for a while meant we had a bright copper dome up there until it oxidized. And our copper here goes black. Some places, like in Ottawa, it tends to go more green. And we have gone through a green phase, so it's kind of a greeny black, but basically black. Over here is the First World War Memorial, the names of the soldiers. There's also Korean War and Afghan War, a few others there. Much quieter here now, walking along inside here with the trees screening us from Albert Street over there. Sometimes called the Marble Palace, as I think I mentioned before. Still some snow in the shade here along the hedgerow. And of course, in my book, Magebane, as I mentioned, that is, I mean, I don't use the plan, obviously, but this is where the palace of the king, the Marble Palace of the King, is located. In my sort of, I use Saskatchewan's geography to a certain extent, but I made it a fantasy kingdom. But there is a lake with the palace on the south side of it, located right there. And within that area, there's a magical dome that makes it always spring. It's never winter inside the dome, even if it's winter outside. It's Saskatchewan level winter too. And if in fact that dome was a real thing, I figured out once, it would actually cover our house. So a bit perhaps of wishful thinking there. That's sometimes a fountain. Now it's kind of a stagnant pool, but things will improve as we get further into spring. Already getting warm, and I'm not even walking all that briskly because I keep stopping and talking about things. Kind of avoid walking around the lake on weekends because there's so many people, and I get enough funny looks carrying this thing around. one somewhat shady looking guy who I think was already talking to himself before I came along when I was closer to downtown a couple of days ago, to know what I was videotaping. It's funny how that word hangs on when there's no tape involved. Last time I videotaped something was a long time ago now. But that's the word that still gets used, especially people of a certain age. Anyway, he wanted to know what I was videoing. He told me to watch where I was going, and I ignored him. I'd already crossed the street to avoid somebody else, so it was just that kind of a neighborhood. I don't think I'll likely walk in that area again. It's not particularly scenic, and it's really a long way from here. I just happened to go that way that day because I needed to go downtown, and I was somewhere else on foot. So I cut through over on that side of Broad Street. And I did want to show the Fire Hall number 1 over there, which is very scenic, I think. I did go into that area. I took pictures of all those buildings and many others, the historic ones, when I did my historic walks of Regina and Moose Jaw in the middle of the winter. A book you can buy still. It's still out of date now. Some of the buildings have been torn down, but obviously, even if they've been torn down, they were still worth mentioning, and they still have some historical information attached to them. Most of the information there came from the Heritage Regina's walking tours. I followed those and then added a few things and did some more research to try to find some additional information about some of the buildings and make it my own. And that's the book that won a Municipal Heritage Award, which was nice. Nice certificate that I went to City Council, the City Council meeting to be presented with by Mayor Pat Fiacco at the time. Morning. Much to say about my other writing at the moment. Yesterday was not a writing day, it was a Kickstarter day. So I sent emails to every author involved and told them where they were with their backers' rewards and told them where we were with the overall campaign and, urged them to whatever they can do in these last few days to talk it up or promote it. It'd be great. Interestingly, just today I got paid for my short story in the upcoming kickstarted anthology from Zombies Need Brains. That's Josh Palmatier, who's a fellow DAW author. Started kickstarting anthologies under that company name a few years ago, and he's done lots of them now. He usually kickstarts 3 at a time, and I've been asked to be the anchor author in a couple of them. One of the anchor authors was usually about 7 anchor authors, and then he opens it up for submissions because it's a different kind of an anthology than I'm doing, where mine's based on who's been on my podcast. So mine's an invitation-only anthology. Anyway, I wrote a story called Casey's for an upcoming anthology called The Modern Deity's Guide to Surviving Humanity. We all had to pick a god or goddess, and I picked Ninkasi, who was the tutelary Sumerian goddess of beer, called the tutelary goddess because the hymns, which we have, the hymn to Ninkasi, which still remains, actually is a recipe for making beer. So as an act of worship, I guess, you made beer. And then presumably as a further act of worship, you drank beer. Anyway, so of course in my version, she runs a brew pub, which was loosely based on Bushwhacker. Best brew pub in Canada, and one of the first. And one down on Dudney. I walked by it the other day when I was down there. And we'll do so again sometime. Of course, it's closed at the moment, in-person dining, because of concern of our numbers being up again here. We've never had a lockdown like some places would call a lockdown, which, considering the data seems to indicate that doesn't really do much except devastate your economy. But there have been generally what I thought were pretty common sense restrictions. Not that anybody's asking me, but of course we all have opinions about these things. We've all become expert epidemiologists and public health people. And I've had one of my shots, so I'm partially vaccinated. Had the first shot of the AstraZeneca. I don't even know how that's pronounced. I tend to make it quite dramatic. The AstraZeneca vaccine. But I'm told that's a little too overdramatic. This is the TC Douglas building, government office building, but a very nicely designed. Really ties into the prairie landscape with the terraces over here with plants and flowers growing on them. Mackenzie Art Gallery is in there, our biggest public gallery, as opposed to a commercial gallery. It has some great shows time to time. Oh, somebody else said hi. Happy Easter to you and your family. Happy Easter to you too, Miriam. Thanks for tuning in. Is that what you call it? When you open a YouTube channel, are you tuning in? Are you linking in? I don't know. I always have to stop to read, to shade my eyes, and to stop the motion so my poor aging eyes have a chance to possibly focus. It's the back entrance of the Mackenzie beneath that quite glaring skylight. At least it's glaring in my eyes. I don't know what the camera saw. And this is just a big grassy area. There's been outdoor concerts and things here. Part of the Wascana Center. Now, last time I went around the end of the the TC Douglas building here, and went back, but I'm going to keep walking along this walkway and work my way back that way. Always looking for a slight difference in these walks, even though I know most people aren't seeing them, all of them, day after day. I know I'm repeating myself, so I try to find new places to go from time to time. And it's a lovely day to walk along here in the park with the sun, as the guy up ahead is doing with his little dog too. The building up there is Wascana Rehab Center. So I have actually sung in there, of all things. I mentioned before that a few years ago I sang in there, and only later thought, singing don't get around much anymore, might not have been the best choice for a rehab center. But they seem to appreciate it. Big open space. I don't know why he's wearing a mask out here in all this open space, but to each his own. So a couple of choices here. Go back that way into the park, but maybe I will go down the front here and walk some more along whatever that road is out in front. I don't actually know off the top of my head. I should. So we'll walk alongside the hospital here, rehab center. Now you can see the McKinsey over there from a different angle. I should say the TC Douglas building. Oh, I think we can walk down in here. I might get trapped, but I've never been down in here actually, so this is cool. I can probably, yeah, it goes down over here. I thought it did. I hear geese in the distance. I don't know if you can or not. Some more of the rehab center here. Oh, bunny rabbit, or snowshoe hare, I should say, dead ahead. Not too concerned about me moseying away. He knows I can't catch him. This would be the main entrance, I think, or at least a main side entrance. Now, let's see here. I can probably follow the bunny rabbit through the grass. Get over to the walkway over there. Fence blocks it off there, but I can follow him. I feel a bit like Alice in Wonderland here, following the white rabbit. If he takes out a pocket watch and goes, I'm late for a very important date, I will be extremely surprised. But I'd probably follow him, because that would be so cool. Now we just end up in a parking lot, no matter what we do here. I'm not the first to walk this way. You can see by the way the grass has been beaten down. I guess the actual main entrance is up here. That was a side entrance over there. This would be the main entrance. Kind of a turnaround for dropping people off. No matter how much I try to avoid it, I'm going to end up in a parking lot here, so. Cross over and pick up the sidewalk again on the other side. So there's the main entrance of the Wascana Rehab Center. I've had a couple of comments from people watching. If you're watching live, want to say hi on YouTube or Facebook, please do. I should see it. I don't know how many of these I've done now. They're starting to pile up. You do them every day, and as I say, it's much as I'm glad people join me, and it's a chance to kind of do a stream of consciousness commentary. And I hope you enjoy that and the view. For all I know, people turn the sound down and just watch the view go by. I don't know. The real purpose here is to motivate me to walk every day. And it's been more successful than, just the I need to go exercise motivation. I actually look forward to doing this every day, which I didn't necessarily when I was just walking for exercise. Or jogging, as I was doing back in the fall before the snow came, until I realized my knees perhaps were no longer jogging material. Let's see. I'll keep winding around over here to the right. Bit of path I've never been on, so that's cool. This must be part of the Devonian Pathway, as it's called, which is the bike path that wends its way a long way through here. There's a slough, as we call them in Saskatchewan. Probably just a pond in other parts of the world, but we call them a slough. Ducks out there. Clearly a fairly permanent water fixture as opposed to just one that's formed because of the melting snow. You can tell by the rushes around the edges. Oh, there's another comment from somebody. Have I been to Africa? No, never been to Africa. Never been to Spain, but I kind of like the music. My overseas trips have been limited to Europe a couple of times. Oh, there's so many choices. Walk-wise. Let's go this way. This will take us down by the tree farm up here, city tree farm. Well, I've never been to Spain, but I've been to Oklahoma. I have been to Oklahoma. And I do like the music of Spain. Or at least I like Miles Davis's sketches of Spain. So fairly just undeveloped parkland here. And then across the road there is, I believe, the tree farm. Well, you can see it's got trees growing in it in rows, rather like a farm. Oh, that's interesting. It's interesting that out here, where I would not have expected it, kids have done a hopscotch grid on the road. Oh, here's the tree farm over here. And there's people walking the other way. I usually try to point the camera away from people. More of the tree farm. There doesn't seem to be a lot of trees growing in it at the moment. There's a few. As I said before, when somebody was watching this, said, "You have a lot of trees." We do, but every single one of them was planted by somebody. None of these grew naturally here where they are. Except maybe some willows along the creek. There might have been at one point, but I've never walked along this bit of road, so it's kind of cool. There's a plaque. I have no idea what that plaque is for. Let's find out. Oh, it's artwork. Rap, 2007, him, Craig Campbell, Saskatoon. Tension or comfort? Is the I-beam being constrained and controlled by the wrapped bar, or is it being encircled and embraced? You decide. Considering the I-beam has been deformed by the pressure, I would say it's being constrained. Might even be being tortured. But maybe that's just my science fiction writing side. We'll go this way. An I-beam being tortured is more interesting than one being constrained or being embraced. There is a plaque there, but it's just a bare piece of metal. Probably said something about that tree and no longer says it, whatever it was. Walking back now towards the rehab center, you can see there. Very peaceful walk today. Well, it was peaceful yesterday. I was in a very quiet residential neighborhood. It is, of course, whatever you call the Saturday between Good Friday and Easter. Easter Saturday, Easter Eve, Good Friday, Boxing Day. I don't really know. We had a great ham dinner last night. And we'll go this way. I had no idea there were all these paths over here. And we're planning lamb, I think, tonight. Tomorrow we'll have our traditional waffle bacon sausage breakfast. We call them Willett waffles. They're actually cornmeal waffles. When we got married in 1997, one of our gifts was a waffle maker and a collection of waffle recipes. And we settled on the cornmeal waffles pretty early. And although we have occasionally made others, including some of the savory ones like the crab tarragon waffles, mostly we make the cornbread waffles for mornings like Christmas morning and Easter morning and that sort of thing. So that's what we will make tomorrow morning after we go shopping this afternoon. Looking forward to getting back and seeing if the Kickstarter has bumped up again. I literally left my chair, went upstairs. By the time I got upstairs, it had jumped up $160. Last time there was a change. That's a whole percentage point from one pledge, which is really nice to see. Okay, now we have a choice. We'll go right. And we'll stick to this side of the road because I've walked down the other side, which takes you by the lake quite often, and we'll do so many times because I can vary this quite a bit, but ultimately you just have to walk around the lake in Regina. It's too nice not to. Too nice a walk not to. Although this has been a very nice walk too, I think. I hope you've enjoyed it with me. If anybody is watching live and if you're watching a recording, I hope you're enjoying it vicariously. Well, it's always vicarious. Time delayed. The permanent record. Permanent record of my walks. At least until YouTube goes away, which some days I think it'd be nice if it did. Not as much as I think it'd be nice if Twitter went away. And Facebook and all those things that are enormous time sinks. Much as I enjoy keeping up with people that I otherwise have lost track with, there are times, and this takes me back to that Robertson Davies book. He had a whole speech on writing and technology, and he was old enough that he was just talking about word processing and how he didn't think they added anything to the writing process and maybe were detrimental. Although he wrote on an electric typewriter, so it wasn't like he was complete technological Luddite. But I point that out because back when I was at the Science Center, I remember us coming to a ceremony where there were like promotional posters and things put up in that little thing, and they're long gone. But I have a real strong memory of the big ceremony and ribbon cutting and whatever it was that I attended. So he was not really around when the social media thing came. He died in 94, I think. But I know he would have hated it. I can tell that from his books. He felt that speed was not an asset to a writer, and that's what the word processor brought primarily. Okay, this is a crosswalk, so hopefully these people are paying attention. They barely were. They clearly didn't want to stop. So actually, this does have me walking out here in a slightly different area than if I'm just walking around the lake. So there's various monuments and memorials and things. Like this one is, let's take a look. Boy Scouts. 60th anniversary of the province of Saskatchewan and the 50th anniversary of the Boy Scouts of Canada, 1965. It's not quite as old as me, which is, considering how long ago 1965 was now. You know, the gimbal doesn't like it when I do stuff like that. It loses track of where I wanted to point. I'll keep going this way. Of course, the lake is just over there, the trees. I don't exactly agree with him on word processing. It's just typing. Word processor is just a fancy typewriter, really. The way I use it anyway. Now, there's tools like Scrivener, which I have, but have never climbed the necessary learning curve to make good use of, which offers many opportunities for, you know, keeping track of scenes and characters and moving things around and making notes on the side. And it all sounds like it'd be really helpful. And I've never learned to do it, or never learned how to use the program, even though I bought it. And one of these years, maybe years was my first choice, was more accurate. Maybe I will. Perhaps it would help me with the Tangled Stars that I'm writing right now, which is also kind of a tangled plot. So the name is perhaps a little too again, I'm kind of avoiding going the way I usually go, so I'll take this little path. I probably walk slower than I did when I was walking for exercise doing this, but I probably walk longer sometimes. And you know, the fact I'm talking while I'm doing it is at least some indication of how much more conditioning I might need. I breathe a little harder and occasionally have to take a bit more breath than I would if I were not talking. If I were walking at the speed, well, if I was jogging like I was in the fall, I would not be talking at all. You would just be coming along for the jog and listening to me go, which I suppose might be interesting in some ways for the speed, the additional speed, but not, I hope my heavy breathing is not as interesting as my writing. I don't make a practice of trying out my heavy breathing on people, I assure you. We've seen a lot of grass and trees today. We've got grass and trees and trees and grass and 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 water. That, for the uninitiated, is a reference to a song by the great Canadian comedy group, the Arrogant Worms. They talk about driving across northern Ontario, which, as they say, is 50 billion miles wide and has 11 people living in it or something like that. All of them named Bob. Even the woman, she's very popular. I think that's how the joke goes. Anyway, but the actual song is, we've got rocks and trees and trees and rocks and 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 water in Canada, 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 and in Canada, 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 something like that. Hopefully that doesn't get me a copyright hit when YouTube scans this video. So we are now finally rejoining where we were before, except I think I will cross over into Lakeview as I've done before and sort of zigzag my way back down to Regina Avenue so I can catch the footbridge that you will have seen many times if you've watched any of these videos before over Wascana Creek. So we came along here before, and are now intersecting my original path. Had a couple of people have been on YouTube and Facebook as I walked, at least for a short period of time. Again, if you happen to be there live, if you leave a comment on the live stream or comment on Facebook on the live stream, I will see it and can say hi or answer a question like, have you been to Africa? Which I have not. But it prompted me to sing a song. Whether that's a good thing or not, I leave to you to decide. I guess I should have sung the Toto song. I bless the rains out in Africa. That one. It's not a bless the rains? Maybe. Something the rains out in Africa. All right, we'll cross Albert here and get away from Albert on the other side going back. There's a bus again. Wasn't that exciting? These are the boring parts of the video where I stand here and look at Albert Street, watch the cars go by. About to change. There we go. That's when I realize how warm I am, when I stop walking and not getting any breeze. This may be the aforementioned cookhouse. Lovely Tudor style large house. I think that's it. Now we're in Old Lakeview. There's nice houses down in here for the most part. One of the older neighborhoods in Regina. This is Angus Street. As I've mentioned before, there's an Angus Street, there's an Angus Boulevard, and we live on an Angus Crescent because whoever Angus was, people really liked attaching his name to roadways. The view down Angus Street here. It'll be much prettier when the leaves are out. Nice place to come down to look at Christmas lights, which, if I'm still doing this come Christmas, which I probably will be, sometime I'll go out at night and do a Christmas tree walk or a Christmas light walk in the neighborhood. That'll probably look cool. I'm sure it'll be cool. I won't do it if it's 40 below, but I'll do it if it's 20 below, maybe. I don't think that would kill the battery. Again, some nice houses, older houses along in here. And on the other side as well. Some of which were in my Historic Walks of Regina and Moose Jaw book. I like sort of, I don't know what style you call that, Georgian maybe? I don't know. That sort of very traditional, symmetrical, with the columned entrance and the shutters and the big windows. I like that look. There's one similar on the other side of the street. And another one. House with a turret. You know how I like turrets. They remind me of castles. I like castles. Battlements are good too. Your own private army that can fight off intruders would be nice too, but most houses with turrets don't also come with that. There's one at the turret. How long have I been walking? It's hard to read because it's white on red, and in the light it's very hard to see. This will be a fairly long walk by the time I get back. A little over an hour, I think. I have to keep a little attention on my feet. The sidewalks can be rough, but it's not as bad as when I was doing it at the tail end of the winter season when I had to watch out for ice. Well, that was just Tuesday, actually, but after Monday's snowstorm, another nice one on the corner there. So we'll go on down here again. We're wending our way back to the footbridge. Nice one. Ball just came out into the street. Probably a kid attached to it. Yes, there is. The high-def YouTube version of this will go up sometime this afternoon. You may be watching that rather than watching this live. But if you are watching live, drop me a comment. I still got a few minutes here of walking. Might be less talking. I already talked about the Kickstarter, and that's pretty much the only thing on my mind at the moment. It runs through Thursday. I thought it was at noon my time, but I think it may be 11 my time, judging the way it's being shown on the dashboard. So time's ticking. Still lots of great backers rewards. And of course the biggest backers reward is you get a copy of this great anthology with 24 amazing stories from 24 amazing authors. Well, I've walked down McAllen before. There's the Doll's House again, which Van Egmond, noted Saskatchewan architect, made for his daughter. I'd love to be inside it sometime, but I never have been. And it's earned a plaque out here, which I stopped and looked at last time, but I won't this time. Very different era and style on the other side over there. Very broad street, McAllen. Oh, it's such a nice day. Hardly any wind. If the trees were leafed out, this would be particularly beautiful. Another kind of classic style of house that I like. This is the street we live on, or just off of. Our nearest corner where I stop at the stop sign is Ritalik and Angus, but I don't, unfortunately can't walk straight south along Ritalik because there's a creek in the way. I get a crick in my neck and everywhere else if I fell in, which I would. I don't think the ice would support me now. Earlier in the winter, I wouldn't have been concerned. people go ice fishing and drive their cars onto the ice around here most of the winter. One has interesting windows. Don't know that they say crick around here. When I made the crick, I get a crick in my neck and my shoes and everything else. But where I'm from, kinda, at least where I've been and have relatives and went to university, you would totally call that a crick. Gone down to the creek to catch some catfish, that sort of thing. Don't really know how good my accent is anymore. I certainly had one when we moved up here from Texas and I was a little kid. I got teased about it. In elementary school, people would come up to me and say, "Draw," because I had a Texas accent. And being a smart kid, and perhaps a smart aleck kid, I would attempt to explain, no, actually in Texas, we don't have gunslingers anymore. It's not the Wild West. And they just made fun of my accent more. So, was I bullied? To a small, there was no physical bullying, but I certainly was teased as an immigrant in Saskatchewan. I was not very happy as a small kid those first couple of years in elementary school. I was happy when I got out to Western Christian College, where my dad taught in grade 9. I didn't like elementary school much, and I really didn't like junior high, or many of my fellow junior high denizens. But that perhaps it just goes with junior high. Oh, there's a interesting modern house on that corner I don't think I've seen before. I don't mind the modern houses, but where are we here? Just want to go a little bit more. That'll be Regina Avenue up there. So we'll keep up our zigzag. But yeah, it's a nice modern one. And there's the weird little traffic control things, islands that I pointed out before. Oh, I think I have a new comment there. What did that one say? Oh, Miriam, you're still with me. What is the season? It is spring. Early spring. But a lovely day. It was 11 when I set out Celsius. It's probably a couple of degrees warmer by now. Certainly is inside my sweater. There's smaller houses along here. I'm coming up to Regina Avenue. I'm still a block or two over from the footbridge, I think. But if nobody's coming, I'll jaywalk. If somebody is coming, I'll go down to the crosswalk to get to the other side. Why did the live stream here across the road to get to the other side? Or because he was chicken, I guess. Would actually be a funnier joke. As I did cross the road to avoid somebody the other day, you could say that that's why I crossed the road, because I was chicken. Oh, I amuse myself. Your mileage may vary, as they say. I thought it was funny. That's a nice house. One of the newer ones there with the view over the lake. And then the next one to it here, I like because it's a very different era. A bit of a Frank Lloyd Wright prairie school, I guess. Certainly ties in with the prairie landscape very much, that one. We couldn't figure out when we moved here from Texas why with all this land, so many of the houses were tall and skinny and crowded together. And of course, the answer is because that's the way the developers sold the lots. But these were, this kind of a lot flatter arrangement, although this one goes down in the back on where the creek is. It's a bit more like what we were used to in Texas, kind of the more sprawling ranch house style, at least for bigger houses. Ours was, that we rented in Texas, was more the size of, say, that one over there, little brick house. But our landlord, who owned the house and then lived next door, had a larger house. I thought it was huge. I've seen pictures since then, and it's a very ordinary sized house, but it was bigger than ours and bigger than anything we'd lived in. Here's the bridge. We never owned a house. My parents never owned a house their entire lives. They always rented. You see the creek is still frozen. Very nice. Getting thinner all the time. We'll go down the dike, I think, since I didn't start out this way. The leaves will come out another month, probably. Start to see them. It's usually not till almost Victoria Day, third week in May, that you feel like everything's fully leafed out. And I don't see anything that looks much like swelling buds at the moment. Sounds like a medical symptom, swollen buds. So this dike here is flood control. Before I lived in the neighborhood, back in the late 70s, I think, there was quite a major flood that went all the way up these roads, 2 or 3 blocks, almost to where we live. It's uphill all the way, of course, but down here, it was basically at the same level as the creek, and there was quite severe flooding. So there's been some minor flooding, but it doesn't come this way, or really that way, until you get down closer to the bridge. There's parkland where the water flows out into, but then it has a berm on the uphill side of it. And it would be a major, major flood to overtop that. So I never saw this part of the town before the dike was built. So the dike to me seems like a really old feature, but I know it's not really. Just scenic though. There's the parkland I was talking about over there, and you can see the berm on the other side of it. And we'll go down here. I have to be cautious because I can't use the handrail when I'm holding this thing in my right hand. Almost home. Someone's following me. I can hear the footsteps. So maybe showing some signs of swelling a little bit there. And the tips of the bushes look suspiciously green, so it may not be too long. And even the grass has hints of greenness in it, I think. That's usually where you see some green first. Yeah, it's definitely starting to green up. The grass is a little bit. You can maybe see it down here by the stop sign. There's just a touch of green, I think. It's the other house with the turret I tend to point out every time we come this way. Oh, confused. I always confuse the gimbal if you point it in weird directions. Again, the Bavarian style house there, I guess. I've been to Bavaria. That's one of the places I've been overseas. But I was probably in a bus looking out the window, not actually stopping anywhere. It was on a chorus tour. I did 2 European tours with my university choir after I graduated from university, so I went back as an alumni. One was for 4 weeks and one was for 6 weeks. First one was 6 weeks, I think, in 82, and then 4 weeks in 87. And it's the only time I've been over there. So I'm sure things have changed. In fact, I know they have, because we came through Checkpoint Charlie in Berlin, through the Berlin Wall, which was still standing when I was there. So that's, if you told me it was going to go down the next year, I wouldn't have believed you. And we were in Budapest. Hungary was still communist, and drove through Czechoslovakia, but weren't allowed to get off the bus. They were running mirrors under our bus to see if anybody was clinging to the underside, trying to escape. Hello. Probably spent more time in Poland than anywhere else, because we sang there, and we were in Gdansk after Solidarity. So it was very interesting, and I'm glad I was there when it was communist, because it's a good way to know that the last thing you want is that socialist state that people say they want, because that's where it leads. Okay, here's our traditional stop sign. When I come this way, I always stop in front of the stop sign and stop, because, you know, that seems logical. So thank you for coming along on this fairly lengthy walk. I'll be back. Bye.